So I'm going to kick things off. This is interesting. When people think about colo, they don't understand that colo is absolutely nuclear hot right now. It is. As a matter of fact, from an Avant perspective, it's growing 100% quarter over quarter, which is incredible. We're actually blown away. But there's a reason because this market is so hot. It's being driven by so many different things. And traditional power, ping, and pop is not what's fueling it. It's being fueled by so many different things. One of those things in particular is security. Tina, you guys have probably one of the strongest colo security offerings that exists today. You almost kind of coined it yourself, right? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, it's pretty simple. It's I know a lot of agents would like to oh no, don't want to talk about security. It's a big deal. But the fact of the matter is that it's not that complicated. If you look at security in a data center in the past, what was it? It was biometrics at the door. It was
man traps.
Man traps, right there. And things like that. And now what we have, okay, is we're taking care of it logically, from a logical security standpoint. So we're going to catch you, if you're a nefarious individual, the network layer before you even have a chance to get to anybody's cage.
Yeah, I mean, that's super interesting. And I think first off, you brought up a really interesting point, and I'd love to get your take on this too, Eric, because we've been selling for a long time. I wouldn't say that we've been selling security for a long time, right? It's relatively new. And the majority of the people that are at this show today walking around, they're probably relatively fearful of bringing up security. But colo and security, it's kind of an interesting thing. Talk about why not to have that fear.
Well, I think at the end of the day, people think you only need to be secure from what you can see or what you can touch or what you can smell. And the reality is that security is a defense in depth initiative, and it extends not only from the network layer but up through your application layer. And if you can find a community and a partnership where you have the physical security, but you also have the network security, and you're able to ensure that access is only granted to those resources that are allowed to be accessed, are allowed to be given access, it really does provide some real value add to what is traditionally just a rack and a cross connect. So you have to sell security, in my opinion, in this day and age in order to remain relevant within your customer base. And if you're not, you're offering an opportunity for your competition to come in, to source security, and then to take what is traditional run rate business away from you.
No, I couldn't agree. And Manon, we were just on a panel. That's why we look so exhausted. I apologize. We just were on a very large panel in the main ballroom. Yeah, I am exhausted. But we were just talking about this age of, the non-traditional telecom things, selling above and beyond. And, when I think about colo and I think about security, it's about the value adds. Talk about, what are you doing in your business? You guys are leading. You're not the lean back type of an agent. You're a lean forward type of an agent. You're coming in there without the traditional just, I represent telecom carriers. I represent traditional power, ping, and pop. How are you coming to market? What are you saying to your customers?
So what we're finding in the enterprise space is that customers are trying to really figure out at the C level what they can do to ensure competitive advantage, because they're really fearful that their competitors are going to be innovating faster than they are. So they need CIOs, and CIOs need trusted advisors that are going to help them understand where the nuances are in the market and where the folks are that are doing things differently than they've ever done before. And they don't get access to those kinds of providers in their traditional circles. So that's why it's so important that the trusted advisors now take steps and go outside their comfort zone to actually bring to the table these kinds of providers like Sixtera and like some of the others in the hybrid IT space that are doing things beyond just traditional colo or just traditional managed services or infrastructure as a service, but are really bundling in some different things and focusing on them.
I love that. And, one of the things that Eric and I were talking about before we got up here, first of all, this is the golden era of the trust advisor. I just got off a couple panels. I've been saying it. I can say it time and time again. And it's about educating IT staffs on something that they don't know even exists. the hybrid cloud is the future. It really is. Yes, AWS, yes, Azure is going to take a huge chunk out of a lot of different things. But it's not just about power, ping, and pop. It's about the extra nuances of the colo, the new colo world, right? We were just talking about this. And I think if you're a trusted advisor, if you're listening to us right now, it's about adding that edge, training like a pro, understanding the various options that exist out there today. They have an incredible one, right? We were just talking about Nutanix. A lot of the trusted advisors out here, they've never had a conversation around that. Explain what I mean by that.
Sure. So for many customers, how they define cloud varies based upon their perspective. For some, it's Office 365. For others, it's unified communications. For others, it's Amazon Web Services. At the end of the day, cloud is services delivered over a network. And when you look at hyperconverged and this notion of how you trim cost and improve performance, one of the biggest line items in our customers' budget is their enterprise agreements, their software licensing and their assurance. So let's take Nutanix as an example. Nutanix has the ability to run the VMware hypervisor where you pay for VMware licensing. But you've also created what's called AHV, which is the Acropolis hypervisor, which is unique and proprietary to Nutanix. Why is that important to your customer? Because it gives you the same flexibility, functionality, and feature-rich capabilities that you get with VMware without paying a license. And so that hyperconverged stack now can allow you to extend into the public cloud, allow you to extend into partners like Cyxtera, who have invested in Nutanix with their CXD platform, but really brings true value to what is a transformational IT discussion around performance and around cost savings and efficiencies.
I love it. You know.
Yeah, you got my vote. I'd say we just dropped the mic here.
And we're done.
That was awesome.
You know, I love that, and that's so true. But you know, one of the things, Tina, that I would say that I don't hear enough of right now, especially from the community of everyone walking around, it's IoT. Okay? And what I mean by that is no one really knows how to take advantage of this 8 billion pound gorilla that is literally about to knock on our door. It's going to be a tidal wave. I personally believe that you guys are set up to take advantage of this like no other. And it's about getting closer to the edge. Talk about your footprint. Talk about bringing people closer to the edge and then wrapping that managed hybrid around it. I mean, that's huge.
Well, the interesting thing is that though I have 57 data centers globally, what Eric just talked about is really a way to obtain colo services without ever going to the facility. We've provided a platform, and then you're able to reach in and obtain whatever you need. Now, with that said, I've done a lot of work on IoT, and 5G, I believe, and a lot of people believe, that will drive IoT, okay? More and more IoT applications. Those applications really need to be wherever the customer that's using them is, okay? So if it's an application on a device, a small, tiny device in your home, right? You may access an application in the cloud, but it needs to be secure and it needs to be put in a place that has some sort of minimized latency, right?
Drew, can I expound upon that?
Yeah, please.
There's this notion of adjacencies.
And I will too.
Please. This notion of adjacencies, if you look throughout human history about where people have settled, they've generally settled on a waterway, on a roadway. They've settled either on a river or on a lake. At the end of the day, that's what our customers are doing today. And instead of something that's physically moving a piece of equipment or something manufactured, they're moving bits and bytes. And if I'm a manufacturing firm or I'm a distribution company, I'm not locating in a small town with a limited airport and railway system. I'm locating by a major metropolitan area, by a large airport. Why? Because I want to be close to the ability to deliver my goods. And so it's not just simply how do we connect to the internet, but it's how do we connect to our databases. It's how do we connect to our customers. It's how we can create a hybrid environment where we can extend our own platforms as our business ebbs and flows. We roll out a new application. We bring a new product to market. Maybe there's a spike in demand, but then we normalize. And so this adjacencies concept, in my opinion, is what's ultimately driving the growth of co-location And when we're talking to our customers, when we're talking about how they bring their products to market, it's really no different than, these old companies that located in places like Chicago and St. Louis and along rivers and roadways.
Couldn't agree more. To summarize it even more, it's about getting closer to the eyeballs that you're trying to talk to. It's about putting it in a facility that's compliance driven that you can't keep up with. It's about having managed services or having other services that you don't want to do that you're easily able to add to. And that's why right now, I can't stress this enough, this is the golden era of the trusted advisor. To go in there and have conversations about solutions like this. You think about Sixterra. I got it right. If you think about Sixterra, I normally mess that up. The footprint provides an opportunity that we have never seen before to the trusted advisor. To go in and have a conversation, and I mean this, and I want you guys to comment on this, Manon, you especially, because this is a big part of your business. But to go in and have a conversation about a company you've never, ever, ever, ever heard of in your life, that happens to be an 800-pound gorilla, and that happens to love the channel. That's amazing. When you have that combo, you can go in and differentiate yourself from everybody else that walks in that front door. You're doing that every single day. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like the time is absolutely now because people are realizing that that the VARs alone can't supply them with all the insights that they need, and they're looking for professional services to do the deep dive and the discovery and the planning piece, because this is not just a simple exercise in figuring out which provider to choose. They really need to figure out what technologies and models to use before they even get to the point where they can look at providers to choose from. So that's why it's so important to go in and have access to all the information that we do, and to really help them understand within each sector of co-location or even managed services how the models are different and how they would impact them and how they would work with those suppliers. That precedes even getting to the point where we're doing the provider selection, in my mind.
Eric, from hybrid, when I think of hybrid cloud, hybrid everything, I mean, you're one of the leaders in the world right now. You're not only one of the largest companies on the planet at almost $16 billion, going and fulfilling every CapEx, but you're helping navigate the confusion of the OpEx market like no other. Colo is a huge part of it, and it's not your traditional ping pop. It is so much more. What's your strategy? What are you doing when you're going in and talking to some of the accounts we were just talking to? There's a $70 billion fund company that you're talking to right now, for instance. What are you doing? What are you bringing up? How are you describing what you're doing for a living?
Sure. Well, I think from our perspective, we need to have an application conversation. And we lose sight on it where we all talk about technology and we start throwing up on customers, showing how smart we are with acronyms and different technological advancements. But at the end of the day, the customer cares about themselves. So first and foremost, and I think we are remiss to talk about what applications are designed to be where and how, number one. And then number two, providing the customer the ability to either capitalize, depreciate, and manage themselves, and or have an OpEx environment where they manage it themselves, and or offer a fully managed environment. At the end of the day, customers are looking for choice. They might prefer to capitalize an asset that has a life cycle depreciation beyond 5 years. But in many cases, the technology life cycle is outpacing the depreciation of assets. And so it is incumbent upon us as technology advisors to be able to offer to our customers the choice of how to consume, where to consume, how to manage, where to manage, how to manage, do you lease? There are a number of different options available. And I think from our perspective, we sit in a very nice position because we can do both. But I think what the channel brings to even small partners, and in particular with firms like Sixterra, is the ability to offer that to your customers, even if indeed you're not a $15, $16 billion firm.
I love that. And Tina, I'm going to ask you a really good question. Why did you join Sixterra? You've been in this game for a long time, not to date her, but you have. Ever since I was 17, she's been in the game. That's what it feels like anyways. But, we did a ton of business at Terramark together. We really were on the forefront, Eric and I and our teams, we were in the forefront of, out there selling cloud before it was super hot. But you joined this firm, which is now a Goliath, but you joined a firm before this. So I want you to talk a little bit about that and why you're running what you're running today.
Okay, I did it because I had a huge amount of confidence in the management team. The same management team that ran Cryptzone, which is a forerunner to Cyxtera, ran Terramark. And we ran the best data centers money could buy. And that management team was awesome to work for, and they were all friends. And imagine at this point in my life being able to work with all my friends and see all of these friends. I mean, my extended family, if you will.
Our audience.
Exactly. I couldn't be happier. But if you look at it, I'm not just an employee, I'm also an investor. And the reason that I invested in the company and that I wanted a piece of the action was because we are the Netflix of co-location.
Ooh.
We are disrupting the heck out of this thing.
That's
okay?
a silver bullet right there. We are the Netflix of colo. I absolutely love that. I'll take that and steal that. I like it. And
Only if you're talking about us, all right? I know you. I know you're the worst one night stand I've ever had, Drew.
Oh my God. Well, I apologize for that. I do have 1,500 of you, but I'm glad you brought up what you just did, and it was what I was hoping you were going to say, because Manny and the leaders, they don't have to work. They didn't have to do this. But they believe so much in this market right now, and I feel like everybody here, if you are not jumping, if you are not talking about saving people from compliance, I mean, Eric, in the next 2 years, Gartner is predicting 33% of the enterprise to shutter the rest of their data centers. It's a pretty big opportunity, right? I mean, in the next 24 months. Talk about that.
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity, and it's not all going to AWS, despite what everybody says. We're starting to actually see customers bringing applications back in-house and figuring out ways to put guardrails around, whether it's their development groups, their operations teams, their go-to-market components. So it's our opportunity, but it's a small window of opportunity for that matter. And so as data centers are shuttered, there are very few that are going to be left standing.
I agree.
And although we've talked a lot about colo, you'll hear me talk about Nutanix and other ways to extend cloud and this notion of hybrid. Your customers are either asking you for it or they're asking your competition for it. And the reality is that we're on the front end of what is a really unique opportunity, given that customers are getting out of buying hardware and capitalizing. And you look at a firm like CDW, we sell hardware. And so it's incumbent upon us to create partnerships with firms like Cyxtera and partnerships with firms like Avant to be able to extend and be able to go to those customers and encourage the movement from CapEx to OpEx, to encourage them to say, do you really want to build data centers and own real estate? And the reality is, no matter how big you are or how small you are, you can't build a data center to spec that is going to live out its depreciable life cycle, because the power of computing, the demands of power, the heat that's generated, and the necessity to cool, you cannot keep pace with how rapidly this market is evolving.
You can't keep pace with compliance, let alone anything else, right? And you're even seeing the hyperscalers right now start to pull back from building their own. They're starting to build closer to the edge. They're starting to utilize facilities like you. You're right though, I'm going to say this right now and wrapping up because we got a minute left. But this is not only the golden era, but this is a very short window for you to get out in front of your customers, to introduce companies like Cyxtera to them, to be that thought leader, to show them your intellectual property, and to become the Manans of the world, which are the true trusted advisors, helping people through the confusion that this industry, thankfully, is giving everyone. So on behalf of my panel and Tina Gravel, thank you guys very much, and thank you for all listening. Take care.